I would love to join, but unfortunately I have a very important parallel meeting with our cluster coordination. So I would at this point say goodbye to you and also whomever I will not meet before. After enjoying that session and concluding the activities for the year, then also Merry Christmas and a very good year. Yeah, I think I hand over to you, Lucy, and I wish us all very interesting webinar today.
Great, thanks, Sebastian, and thanks for being there, for welcoming on behalf of TurboClick, TURVAS and SNGA. I saw that Stella just started the recording. This was something not supposed to be in the recording, but that's fine. It's just that we need also to make everyone aware that we will record this, and so Sebastian, you can also get to watch it afterwards and see what we have discussed. So we hope that that's fine for everybody. Just for the housekeeping, we will use the chat, and we would also like to see some faces, so you can also leave your camera on if your connection allows. So having said that, yeah, Sebastian has already presented the amazing speakers. We are very happy to welcome here today. A big thank you also in advance already also for Stella and Evandro for joining us and bringing the topic of digital innovation for cities to this last meetup from TurboClick for the year. We are really thankful and happy to have you here. We have prepared a good plan for you in the sense that we also want to do a little bit of a checking to check the knowledge that is available. I don't know if we have some more participants now joining. That's then it's becoming a nice way to get the knowledge from the crowd. We will have then the nicely prepared imagination journey from Stella, and also some concrete insights about what the BMZ DigiLab is. And also then Evandro will showcase the tool Action that was in fact actually a winner of the Open Innovation competition from the supported from the DigiLab. So this is how this two aspects connect. And yeah, we want to have some discussions and some time for Q&A also then together with you. Good, then let me see if I can, just briefly about TurboClick. For those who perhaps don't know, Sebastian was here, Ishitiak is the counterpart speaker. We have also tandem partners in the FMB, in the planning department, and also I have been supporting TurboClick for many years now. And these are the topics that we have been working on for the last years, and you see digitalization is a big issue for us, and we have already also had Urban October event on the topic of smart cities and green transition, and I'm happy to be following up on this with you today. So let me just then stop sharing my screen, so that we wanted to do a little check-in with you, and I'll share again just in a bit a Menti call with you. So just a second. This is the Menti poll. You can go to menti.com and type in the code 27870882. Or you can, if you have a mobile phone at hand, you can also just scan the QR code, and you will go then directly to the poll. Perhaps Evandro, if you can type in the chat, because I'm not able to use the chat anymore. I hope you can. If you can just type the code again, that we don't lose the that everybody can also access it. Still, I had a link, but now if I want to post it, that's going to be a bit too complicated. And yeah, we hope that you can now access it. The first question we would like to ask is the most striking innovation you have ever seen in a city. There's some things already coming up. Pop-up streets, nice. You can also post, I think, more than one time. It's a card question, but it's yeah. Feel free to also bring in more than one innovation if you have more examples. And it's funny that pop-up streets are not digital innovation, but it's yeah. Car docking stations, fine. Doing the very basic but well, interesting. Vertical farming, sensor-based garbage collection. Wow, that's very, I think, Scandinavian somehow. Nice. Vertical farming combined with housing. So some digital, some not exactly. Good. We have five answers. Perhaps I wait a little bit more and then we can change. Old airport factories turned into parks. Not innovative, but very useful. Wow, I think it is. Using of space can be, one needs to be innovative with that as well. Overnight infrastructure creation, bicycle lanes, pedestrian overbridge, so all this tactical urbanism kind of ideas. Yeah. Good. Participatory budgeting, I like this a lot. Great. I think there would be more. You can still continue to vote and to put your answers. I would change the question so that we can yeah, now try to get an idea of areas where digital innovation is most needed in your urban context. So now I don't know exactly. We hope we have a lot of colleagues from Asia, but also perhaps beyond. And this is just a more general kind of yeah, categorization of the areas where you think digital innovation is most needed in your urban context. And this is going to look differently because it's a word cloud. Hope to get some answers on what you think are the most important areas. Okay, so services such as traffic and waste management, parking spaces, resilience. Yes, it's a big, broad topic. GovTech. So all the issue of public governance, administration, master plans. Nice. Basic services, participatory planning. Yeah. So we have like infrastructure issues, planning issues, and services. Good. Pollution. Nothing is becoming bigger because, okay, the three answers from everybody is just very different, but transparency, participation, all related to governance, resilience, disaster management, all the issue of climate change, yeah, services and infrastructure. Good. So different areas, different aspects. We will deal with a special resilience and disaster management today, and hope that you are of course then learning something from that. And with that, thanks for participating on the Menti. That's we can come back to this later on when we talk about the support from DigiLab. With that, I'll stop sharing and get back to my plan that I will introduce you now, Stella and Evandro, with a little bit more detail, because they will be they are our special speakers. Let me then introduce Stella. Stella is passionate about digital innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem building and has experience in advising startups and ecosystem builders for sustainable development within the context of development cooperation. Also in urban development programs, she was in Ecuador. Currently, she's working as a policy advisor for BMZ with the topic of scaling the most innovative technical solutions for development from Berlin. Stella has more than 7 years of professional experience in both private sector with impact-oriented startups and also, of course, with development cooperation in Nicaragua and Ecuador with GIZ and with KfW. She holds a BA in philosophy and economics from the University of Bayreuth and a master's in development studies from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Stella, you were really highlight for this meeting. We're really happy to have you here, and you will start with the journey and the DG Lab. And after that, we have some questions, and then Evandro will continue presenting action, and I will present Evandro also now that you already know who he is. A very dear colleague and friend. Evandro is an urban engineer with over 15 years experience in more than 30 countries, coming from Brazil, just as myself. His work entails bringing policy into action and action into policy in various fields related to urban development, such as urban resilience, housing, and slum upgrading. He is CEO of CLURP, a social enterprise focused on providing simple and affordable software for the least resourced cities, and serves as an international technical advisor for UN Habitat, GIZ, and the World Bank. Also really happy to have this connection now come together to present this the insights and tools and to discuss with you. So I've hand over to Stella, and Stella will also bring in some innovative methods and some innovative formats for us. So Stella, the floor is yours, and thanks for being with us.
Hello, everyone. And from my side, also a very warm welcome here from Berlin. And as Lucy said, we will actually embark to something a bit different today for the first part of my presentation, because I was thinking, okay, how can we connect people that probably don't really work with the digital innovation so closely? How can we somehow make them feel that this is needed and this could be a benefit in your program context? And I thought it would be nice to actually do a so-called imagination journey with you. So it's an exercise, and it will take about 15 minutes maybe, and I will read out a couple of things to you. And I warmly invite you to simply join us and join me and be part of this exercise. You need a little bit of imagination capacities. Let's frame it like this. You need to somehow be able to think of some future scenarios, but it's guided. So don't worry. You don't have to be super creative, and you don't have to be afraid of be forced to share something you don't want to share, because first of all, it's an exercise for you. So you do this to just take a step back from the daily routine and reflect on things and on digital innovations in your program context and in your daily work context. And then I also invite you to share your experience with this exercise, not necessarily with what you've reflected on, obviously also if you want to share this, but firstly, rather your experience with how it felt to you to take this step back and to reflect on things, because you don't really do these kind of things in the daily routine. And oftentimes neither in GIZ webinars. It's a very format. Usually we have PowerPoints and we present, and we thought preparing this here with Lucy and Evandro, we thought, okay, it would be cool maybe to do something different. This is why I am going to do something different with you. So I think it's enough of an intro for what will come now. And now I invite you simply to listen. Lucy's looking forward to it. I hope some of you as well. I cannot see you, which is also fine, because actually now at the very end of the intro of the imagination journey, I would have asked you also to turn off your camera. So perfect that the camera, due to actually internet connection, is turned off, because now it's time to just be with you and yourself and just reflect on what a digital innovation can do within your context. I will do the same actually, so that we all feel super comfortable in just listening. I will turn off my camera as well, and I will read it out to you as starts now. So I invite you to embark on an imagination journey with us. There is a whole lot of experience and intelligence gathered in this audience today. This is also what Lucy said. You come from different contexts and programs and working contexts. When we come together in setting like this, we usually tend to tap into cognitive thinking. That is working that is by working our neocortex. This is where we actually do cognitive thinking. Now, as you may know, there is much more to our brain. According to neuroscientific research, our limbic system is key for more visual and emotional intelligence, and they are important when we speak about imagination, motivation, and inspiration for changes. So, with our activity right now, we'll explicitly welcome all of our forms of intelligence. Let's begin our journey as a playful collective experiment to tap into imaginary thinking, actually even into future thinking. Some details up front. I will begin sharing a brief. Now this introduction will come a bit where we actually are going to go, in which future scenarios are we going to go. And this then, as I also said already, will be followed by some questions, which I'm going to read out very slowly from time to time for each question. So there will be roughly 2 minutes for each question. Once we get to the questions, please do note down anything that comes up. So now it would be the time to get something to write. You can also use your computer. It can be OneNote. It doesn't have to be a pen and a paper, but if you have a pen and paper and feel more comfortable with it, just grab a pen and a paper. Don't put any limitations or filters on your mind for now. Just give yourself the permission to be freely and explore freely in this exercise. And note anything that comes up. So now, as I said, get something to write. And please, if you really want to get the benefits out of this exercise, do not be tempted to go into your emails in this very moment. I just give you this hint. If you feel you have to work, maybe then it's also fine. But if you want to be with us on this exercise, put your phone aside, maybe unmute the notifications or mute the notifications of your emails. And let's embark to this imagination journey. First, let's find a comfortable position. Set yourself in a position that you feel comfortable, and let's focus a very short moment onto our breath. So try to take a few breaths deeply and slowly in and out, and observe yourself for a moment. How have you arrived here in this webinar? How have you arrived here in this afternoon or morning for the ones being in Germany? If you feel like it, you can also close your eyes. We have turned off the cameras already. So this is actually to start and to arrive here on this imagination journey. Keep breathing slowly and deeply. And with every breath out, feel free to let go of anything that is bothering you, or maybe in your mind, might be the emails, and also might be the hesitating of what we're doing here. Try to let go. Let's take one more breath. And now off we go. Feel free to leave your eyes closed. This is how you can really activate your neocortex. Now I ask you to picture some of the communities whom your program and your activities are working with, or to whom they are serving, to whom or with whom you're co-creating and collaborating via your activities in your program. Just pick one community, one target group, or so-called beneficiary. Imagine where they are right now. And imagine what they are doing. What are they wearing? How do they look? Let's stay here for a couple of seconds. Let any images come to you. There is no need to write them down at this moment. Just picture the community you were thinking of. And now I will start with the questions. Once you've pictured the community, where I would ask you to write the things that come into your mind down. When you imagine the lives in those communities, try to picture their greatest concerns, the key problems they are experiencing. Which images come up for you? Note down 2 or 3 of the most pressing issues for those communities. I will leave you some time here, 1.5 minutes, to really think about the greatest concerns the community in question is facing. Might be that you've also pictured one particular person within this community and you're just thinking of one person. That's also completely valid. Now, after having pictured the community and also their greatest concerns, we need to shift our perspective even a bit more. Might be tricky, but I'm sure you have arrived in this exercise by now. Let's walk through an imaginary magic door and explore an ideal future for this very same community or person in 5 years from now. For a moment, you may need to get over some brief dizziness from time traveling, as it's not so easy to imagine this community in 5 years from now. And your senses need to adjust before you notice the very same community in their ideal version of the future. So what has happened? Let's explore which images come to us from this future perspective. And how will we explore this? I have some questions that can guide you through finding your imagination. So imagine a family or even an individual in this community. So what positive change do they experience in this ideal future 5 years from now? What is the different for them? And here you're also allowed not to take notes. You can just think of this state, of this ideal state in 5 years from now. What has changed? How do they look? How do their surroundings look? How have their biggest concerns? How have the biggest concerns? How are they solved, maybe to some extent? Of more seconds, 1 more minute. Really picture this ideal state. So now the next question is again for writing something down if you want. So how will some of your programs and the very concrete activities within your working and GIZ context, how will some of these activities have made these positive changes you have just pictured possible? Now note down one aspect or a couple of aspects that really made this change possible that are connected directly to your activities, or the ones that will be coming in the next 5 years. In your imaginary world, we don't really think about the operational planning for the next years. We think about what is something you wished for in an ideal state and how the program or the project, the activities have made these positive changes possible. You're trying to connect this to your work. Write down anything that comes into your mind. So So you see the individual, the family, or the community. It doesn't really matter what you've picked, if it's one person or if it's more a group, a family, or the whole community. You see them in their ideal state, and you try to imagine what were the concrete activities within your program project that have made these positive changes possible. And after having thought about the activities within your program, I have one more question for you in this future ideal scenario. So how will digital solutions have helped unlock and boost their impact for these communities or this individual you were just thinking of? Feel also free to add digital solutions you know and or those that still need to be invented, something that probably doesn't really exist in this concrete community by now, but you wished for. So you want this to exist in the 5 years, otherwise you would never reach this ideal state you have dreamt of a couple of questions ago. So how will digital solutions have helped unlock and boost their impact for these communities? And again, note down anything that comes into your mind. Think about concrete digital innovations. Think about what will have needed to change in the future to really get to this ideal state. Have thought about digital innovations in the context of cities in the intro question. So if there's nothing that comes into your mind, just go back to what you have brainstormed a couple of minutes ago. But I'm sure by now, once arrived here in this imagination journey, there will be a couple of digital innovations and solutions that come into your mind. So this is the last question. I give you a couple of more seconds to finish. And I hope you're still writing down ideas and solutions. And now it's time to slowly come back, to really let go of our imagination role. Feel free to imagination journey and this role we've had thinking of a future scenario. Feel free to just stand up quickly and shake off before we come back here and meet again with the cameras turned on, in the case you can. In case you can't, just come back here and bring your cognitive thinking back into the focus and not the imagination thinking. And thanks for participating. And now I would be super happy to hear some of your answers, some of your experiences. And first I let you, come back in here into this room. Yeah, and I've also seen we had some drop-offs. Yeah, it's tricky. Sometimes it's not an easy exercise to hold people when they're very busy. But the ones that stayed, I hope it was useful, and I would be very happy to hear your experiences. Is there anyone who wants to share? What did you think? What did you picture in these 3 questions, the ones where I asked you to note down answers? Or how did you feel about this exercise in general? Maybe Lucy, did you actually join us for this exercise, or were you?
Totally. I enjoyed it a lot, of course. So my concern, the community I pictured was climate change, of course, all the issues of disaster and public services. So a very vulnerable community without public services, and of course, I don't work on a concrete GIZ project, but I could think of different activities from of the support at the policy making level for these issues at the local level, and also of course in the multi-level perspective as well, the capacity development approaches that we have and so forth. And then it was quite hard to think of as a digital solution for such a vulnerable community where the issue of climate change and services as the concern. But thinking further, you can always, I think, brainstorm good solutions that with a very simple application, assuming this community would have some kind of perhaps if not everybody has a mobile, but someone in the community or some key persons have in the community that they would some kind of warning system could be there to help them in case of disaster. Some kind of feedback application where they talk about their complaints on missing public services, or that they give feedback on what has been improved, as also as information for the government to take further decisions, and and perhaps an app to create community also in times of crisis. So something that connects them, and time sharing. So when there is something happening, that they can also build on each other and have this safety net that sometimes, in face of risk and disaster are also important things for a community to have. These were my ideas, and I enjoyed the method a lot. I think it's giving us this perspective of really looking from the future and see what do we need until we reach this ideal scenario where they have good public services, they have tools and methods for being protected against risks and exposure to climate change.
Thanks a lot for sharing, Lucy. And I think that's exactly what you say. It helps you actually to picture a scenario and really maybe also come up with innovations you didn't know of before. I mean, that's, sometimes really you get super creative in this sort of imagination journey, and you think about, oh, this is something that is needed. And I wouldn't say people end up being entrepreneurs after an imagination journey, but they might. So I think it can really tease your creativity. And also I encourage you, the ones that did participate here, to do this if you feel this is appropriate in your community, like in your working context. You can use this exercise to make people take a step back and to think of, okay, what is needed here? What is an ideal state? But it's tricky also. It also depends a lot on the cultural context if people are willing to do this. I've done this once in a workshop in Malawi, and you could see how the room actually split, and some people participated, others couldn't really stand this exercise. It's very interesting to see how people react to this. But I want to ask someone else who wants to share, if there is some of you who want to share. Yeah, I can see there is Sumana lifting his hand. Please come in.
Thank you, Leona. So I must say this exercise was really interesting. Somehow it triggered empathetic thought process. It was a very different approach from the stereotyped operational plan or how we go ahead with the partners. Well, it was like I'm there about whom I'm thinking and I want to see the change. So it was really interesting. So what I was imagining, I'm from the project Sustainable Urban Development Smart Cities, Phase 2. From the SUID cluster, SIUD cluster, sorry. Well, we have a project where we are just starting. We were in the process of inception this year, and now we are in the phase of rolling out. I imagined one of our partner city communities in Mangaluru, the state of Karnataka. It's a coastal state, and the city is a coastal city. The issue that we understood from a workshop with the stakeholders very recently is the experience urban flooding, artificial flooding. And disaster management is one of the key problems in the city. So I visualized with the first question, fishermen along the coastline in local attire. At this point of time, in Indian time, maybe have come back home from sea visit for lunch, and they're again thinking, how do I make more money in the day? And I'll go again, take a boat and go to the sea and go again for fishing. So with this thought, I started my thinking process and all. The issues that I could relate to first was daily livelihood generation. So each day, wake up in the morning and they have to think, okay, so I need to earn so that I can eat or sustain my family. The second issue that I could think of was anytime there can be flooding, then they can be evacuated. So what next? So that's a constant threat or insecurity that they face with their families and with themselves. So with this, I could think, okay, after 5 years, what can change? So regarding the first point, maybe they can be financially independent in the sense that when they currently they have daily livelihood generation as a problem, which depends on market fluctuations. However, in next 5 years, they can reduce their dependency on the market and be more independent themselves by becoming an entrepreneur in their own community. So they reduce their dependency on the market and become more strong and independent and have a hold in their own economy. And second point, they are adapted or equipped to disaster vulnerability. So they will be vulnerable, but they are adapted to it and they have equipped. Next, your question was how this change. So as from GIZ, what we could do? One, strengthen their economy, promote entrepreneurship, and very important, make them aware of any alternate locations where they will be evacuated. So what happens in evacuation is you are evacuated, but we don't know where we are going. Our all economic ties are lost. Our livelihood sources are lost, and we are in some shelter. But to break this chain, one thing which can be innovated is we already make them aware this is your location and you have everything there to sustain. You will not go somewhere where you don't have water, you don't have food, you have to sustain without basic amenities. And another point which I thought was how this change can be done. Community reaches out to each other in terms of disasters for preparedness and during emergencies through community building. So community building will be one, and second is promoting entrepreneurship, and third is strengthening their economy. And to last question, what I thought was digital solutions. Well, we are exploring areas of blockchain technology, digital blockchain technology. So looking into the aspect of market is one thought that I had, digital market blockchain technology, in terms of startup applications for them, which would help them to build their own entrepreneurship. In terms of the disasters, I could think of how about digital sensors for disaster signaling. It can be in terms of emergency apps. Everybody has a mobile phone nowadays, help desks for evacuation. And my final point is building community networks for sustaining together. So maybe I've gone a bit long, but yeah, happy to share my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that was actually super valuable. Thanks a lot. I really like your reflections and that it actually brought some empathy to you and you could really, yeah, think of what you wished for in a different from a different perspective, not the typical operational planning. This is exactly what I wanted to reach, that you have a different approach of thinking, okay, and I know this is imaginary thinking, so you sometimes think of things you will never implement, but still it gives you, it might give you some motivation at least, and it might give you some clarity on maybe what is needed and maybe, or maybe even what you still have to ask and find out. So thanks a lot. Very, very happy with this insights. Yeah, in terms of time, yeah, thank you. Seriously, thanks a lot. Very happy to hear that you have enjoyed the exercise and that it was helpful and useful for you. In terms of timing, or because of yeah, I think it's like now maybe 15 minutes left for my part, I will try to keep it even shorter, or let's see. I would actually also be very happy now to get back to the cognitive part and just present a little bit on what the BMZ DigiLab is doing, because I know also for you working in the field, oftentimes it's super far away what we do here at headquarters, and I now come to this very formal part of presenting what we do, and then would like to discuss with you and hear some questions, because yeah, as you could hear from the intro, what we deal with is digital innovations and how to scale them and bring them into our program structure. So we could be potential use also for your program. And Marielle, yeah, thanks for posting it. She posted already here our website, but this is now the Digital. No, it's our website because there is two. We have the bigger digital global website, and we have one specific one of our project, which is the DigiLab. And I will share my screen now and very briefly present how we work. Just one second. Oh no, this is not the correct one. This is just a German picture on what we do. I'm sorry. Here is the English version. Oh, there it is. Just 1 second. I start at the beginning. That would be cool. And I switch to full screen. So what we do here at headquarters, first of all, it's important to understand that it's an initiative. It is initiated by the ministry, but we are a very not a big one, but we are a partner organization, because what we say is, okay, we want to bring digital innovations into the program structure and want to work better in a better way with digital solutions and innovations. We cannot do this on our own. So it was from the very beginning on, it was a partnership. It was a partnership between the BMZ, so our commissioning party, us ourselves, GIZ, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Development Bank, KfW. And what we said, so our starting point is actually, okay, there are a lot and many inspiring examples of digital innovations. And we've heard of a couple of one now throughout the day and the call already, but sometimes they just get stuck and they don't really transcend to a stage where they can have a broad impact, because we tend to reinvent the wheel. Especially in our GIZ project logic, when there is a second phase, sometimes we just want to build something new, even though there might be something else that has worked in Latin America, but we're not aware of simply. But we are actually starting from this very well aware point of, okay, digital innovations are a must when we want to somehow achieve the Agenda 2030, which is now not to be achieved any longer, the goals. Nevertheless, we acknowledge that digital innovations play a big role, and we cannot pretend that they are not there anymore. So what I said before, or what is here on this slide, maybe in these 4 points, a bit more concrete. So the mission is actually to assist these innovative approaches within development cooperation to scale their impact. And this actually targeted or regarding a digital innovation in itself means that we're trying to help the digital innovation to unfold its impact in a different program context, or also that we actually try to, I always say, like in source, we try to also collaborate with innovators from the outside of the GIZ cosmos and world, because that's also where we think there is lots of potential and lots of innovators are working on things and solving things, and we somehow need to make sure that we connect the dots. And our focus actually here is on proven solutions. So we are not an incubator. So we do not ideate with innovators. So we don't really build the innovations. We want to scale them. And how do we do this? I also, like this partnership said it already, or maybe could make you understand that we work in rather unconventional ways, because we try to think a little bit bigger together with a financial cooperation with the Gates Foundation to make sure that we can unfold the potential of a digital approach and idea and solution in more context than maybe just one or two. And what is super important in our context, we are trying to build all the processes we build, because obviously if you want to scale an innovation somehow, you need to build processes on how to do this. And we lay a strong focus on user centricity and agile working methods. What this means, we will have a look into this in a very second. So in a nutshell, we are a boost for digital innovations in our development cooperation or development context. And this is, actually the summary of what I've said. So we scout for these innovations within our world of GIZ and KfW projects, but also outside. And we scale the impact. This means we use a proven innovation and bring it to other contexts. So on the one hand, the impact is scaled of the innovation as such, but also at the same time, we try to really scale the impact of a program. There's also a point of cost efficiency. So, for example, you might reach some output goals in a better or faster, more efficient way by using a digital innovation than you would do otherwise. And there's also, I always say, or I tend to say, it's a spillover effect, because as we are doing this so super closely here at BMZ, and BMZ is a ministry that moves very slowly. They have lots of old working methods. We have a spillover effect of changing work culture because we use different working methods. So we use we work with very agile working methods and have like lots of colorful sticky notes in a room, which is something very new to the divisions at BMZ that we're working with. So we try to also have an effect here on this third pillar, which is changing work culture. And this is a process, actually. We built a process. We're still testing this process. We ourselves here at DigiLab are we are a pilot. So we are building ourselves. We started 1.5, 2 years ago. And this pilot is under constant improvement and development. But we have developed a process, and we're using this and collaborate with different GIZ programs in applying this process. But we are constantly further developing and improving this. And I think the most important point here is maybe our scaling lab. Because when you have found somehow an innovation or an approach, let's frame it like this, you want to replicate or you want to further the impact of this approach, because replication is not, it's just one part of scaling, to be honest. But I don't want to explain further what scaling is, because scaling as such is a huge buzzword, but I'm happy to respond to questions if there is interest of this. But here for this presentation, I picked out the scaling lab, and I wanted to have a closer look into what we do in a typical scaling lab. I say prototypical because for us, we have developed a process, but we adjust this process to the needs of a local, of a program. If there is a program in Rwanda, they might have a different focus on what is needed in the scaling lab than a program in India, for example, due to local circumstances, due to wherever they are in the program. So there is different factors which can influence what stage of the scaling lab is the most important for us. And here, this is just to give you a brief overview on how we work. So obviously we have created this process and we actually customize it to every situation. So sometimes you don't need a kickoff workshop maybe because the vision is super clear of what is a scaling strategy. And I think most of the time a visioning workshop is super important, but all I wanted to say by this is that we really do this on a level or on a very co-creative way with the program themselves. And what we've done, for example, a couple of times where you see here point 2 to 4 is an iterative process. And sometimes when you have found out at step 4 that you haven't really involved a super important partner, you might also go back to the system mapping, which is why you see the loop here. So we do actually try to be really flexible between step 2 and 4 and develop a scaling strategy with the most important partners with a local system that we have mapped under step 2. And then when we do also, obviously, we have a feasibility check and we write an action plan. How can we implement the scaling strategy? So in a nutshell, what the scaling lab is for is to develop a scaling strategy. And it's, as you just said, you framed it correctly, the person who shared the experience with the imagination journey, it's not the way we usually do operational planning, but this is also how we don't really work. And we are not a GIZ program ourselves. We are a small service entity here, and we're trying to build a scaling strategy in a different way. This is why we have developed this scaling lab. And the scaling lab, as I said before, is under constant improvement and further development. Yeah, and what we do then, or different point here, not related to the scaling lab anymore, but we have a room. So we have a lab. There is an innovation lab, and it might not be so much of interest for you as you are far away from where I am, but to the ones that pass by Berlin or that are in Berlin not every now and then, but they might happen to be in Berlin at some point in their lives, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and to visit the room. You can see here some BMZ colleagues working on our facilities here on the big touch screen. So it's cool to see that also for the people, it's a different way of experimenting and really it's a different way of working in this environment. And I don't know if you know some creative working spaces in your surroundings, and if you yourself could experience that working environment really changes the way you think and the way you work. This is why I put this on the slides, because I think it's an important fact. And now I just want to bring 2 examples before I open for questions. what we're working on and how we do this. And these 4 words are also just the big priorities of BMZ that you might all know. Obviously, we ourselves are working with them as well. But to make it more concrete, what does it mean to develop a scaling strategy and to scale a digital innovation? This means a couple of things, but I pick 2 examples, and I will actually start with the last one first, because the second one will be my perfect the perfect introduction for the second part of our call today. One example is we've had there is a project that is being implemented in Bangladesh. It's called Rural Women Entrepreneurs. It's an initiative that is actually arose through something that was called Smart Development Hack during the Corona, or the peak of the crisis, because it's not over, but during the peak of the Corona crisis in 2020. And the outcome was a project that is being implemented in Bangladesh, and they work with so-called rural women business centers. They work in the health topic, and they really, on the one hand, strengthen the capacities of women to create the knowledge in their local communities, but at the same time to do this via a so-called telemedicine service. So to use their phones, and if possible also applications to get hold of information for the coronavirus. So this, let's say, approach of how we can build a project worked very well in Bangladesh. And we at DigiLab last year decided, why not doing a scaling lab with this program, with this initiative, because it's not even in technical terms, it's not a whole or an own program. Nevertheless, within a program, it's an initiative. Why not doing a scaling lab with this approach? Because they are using digital technologies. We think it's very easy because it works in rural areas. It's telemedicine, so you just need a phone. So it's low tech. Let's frame it like this. Why not actually trying to make sure that we can bring it to other contexts, and make sure that if we bring it to other contexts, we do it in a very user-centered way. So we've done scaling labs, and now we are in the phase of implementing this initiative in Malawi, Nigeria, and Kenya. So this is one way how we work. So we have an initiative at GIZ. We have found that this initiative has shown impact, and we are building it further, but not the very typical way how our colleagues from Fach- and Methodenbereich, from our internal consulting areas would develop it further. We take a bit more time and have a different approach. So our mandate is a bit different here. But then another example, now I have to click back here, is super different from what I've just explained from Rural Women Entrepreneurs. Another example is was a big sourcing program, because we also are sourcing. So we are looking in the world, and we are looking for digital innovations that have worked and try to bring them into GIZ. And what we have done is last year, actually, we started a global innovation program in the realm of smart cities, because as Lucy said, I used to work in a city context as well. So it was always a passion topic for me, even though I'm not in urban, I don't come from this context, but nevertheless, we somehow we stuck to the topic of cities and urban development. So we launched this program, and we're looking for digital innovations to different topics that are challenges in the context of urban development. And we scouted 7 solutions, and they actually got a prize, but also they were part of a so-called elaboration program. They got some mentoring, and they got some matchmaking platforms with some of our GIZ activities. And one of the solutions, and this has had actually nothing to do with how we planned this call, because Lucy, she knew Club and Evandro from a different context, but one of the solutions we selected as one of the 7 winners were Club. With their tool Action, which is also why this made complete sense to have this call together. So this is how we work. So you've seen now the 2 different approaches. Okay, on the one hand, something that is already GIZ internal, and we're trying to adapt it to a different context. And then something that is scouted with an open innovation program and has also connections to GIZ programs, but is not really, or did not really arise from within, but is actually something working in the outside world of GIZ, and we're trying to build the bridge to our GIZ programs. But this is actually all I wanted to share with you. I hope you had the chance to understand a little bit how we work, and I want to open for questions. Before also, I want to hand over to Evandro, who is also keen to explain more on how Action works. But first, I open for questions and stop sharing here.
Great, thanks so much, Stella. It's really inspiring, I think, to see, get to understand where the innovations are happening within and outside GIZ, and how to really make this effort of thinking how to scale that up. And the question I would have first, until some colleagues perhaps are thinking also about it, for understanding of the process of the scaling lab that you showed, from step like 1 to 6, how long does it take, more or less? How is the process of getting these different steps coming together, and what is your support there then? So you are doing that with the partners, you are coming and bringing in the methods and supporting that.
Yeah, it's a super valid question, and I don't have a clear answer because it's super individual how long time it takes. Because if you've seen the steps are this circle you've seen, it really depends on how big also the idea is. Because now we might be working, for example, with a couple of programs to strengthen e-identity systems in a couple of countries, and this will be a big endeavor for us, and this will take maybe even 9 months to have developed a scaling strategy, because there is a couple of countries involved, a couple of programs involved, and so many different stakeholders from the local ecosystem. So this needs a clear process, and it needs also designers and design thinkers that are working with on our side, because we don't do it everything ourselves. We have a very small team here, but that's actually what we are in charge of. What we do when we collaborate with a program is we take care of the methodology, we take care of all this service. So our package is, because unfortunately we don't have a big fund, we don't have a huge, like we don't have this investment fund here, let's frame it like this. But what we have is the methodological expertise, and we buy also the expertise from also other designers, and they come into all these processes. It can be quicker. We have had, for example, the example you've just seen from Rural Women Entrepreneurs. This took maybe for the 3 countries, not more than 3 months, because it was very straightforward. We knew the countries that wanted to work on this, because we made a call for participants, and it was a bit more straightforward. But I can't really respond it in general, to be honest.
Okay, no, that's fine. Great, thanks.
Yeah, and if there are no other questions, there is a question. Yeah.
Can I make a very small question, if time permits? Thank you. So the design lab images was very interesting and very catchy. Can we make it with the partners, or do you have ideas how we can bring our partners if we are creating such a studio or a lab in the office, in GIZ office, and how do we interact with partners? And my second related to this is, later on, maybe after the call, if you would share some tools that you use for this kind of labs. I'm sure it must be very different than the Zob cards and the kind of workshops we have. So yeah, these are my 2 questions.
I love your question, because it brings me to a point that I forgot to mention. We are building a toolkit, because we actually found out, or we experienced that this is like, it's super complex to do this and to in a local context, and it's we cannot deliver this service to all the programs that wished for, because we are a super small team. We don't have, we can't really work with all the programs that are interested in working with us. So what we decided to do, and we've been working on this throughout the last 6 months, I think, to build a toolkit, which will be something that is on the website. It will even be an interactive toolkit on a web-based app. So you have like an interface where you can click through, and you can put, for example, I'm at this stage of the program, my stakeholders are mostly governmental or non-governmental, and then you get the tools what to do and how to build a scaling lab yourself, because that's what I wanted to achieve as well, to just give it to, or we want to achieve here at DigiLab, to give it to people, to programs, so that they can build it themselves. So yeah, we're about to finalize the first prototype, but be patient with us. It might take another 3 months, maybe. Yeah, March, April, I can send you something very concrete. Until then, I can just give you some advice of what we do, and obviously send something. But I recommend, if you are not a designer and have not really worked with design thinking or service design, it's tricky to do it yourself. Then I would always recommend to also hire a local consultant. But even with a toolkit, you get the toolkit and you hire a local consultant that implements. That's how I see it could be working very well.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much.
And I think now we have to speed up, no, a little bit. Yeah.
Great. Good. Then perhaps Evandro, feel free now to explain us about action and this concrete example of this tool that has been selected also by the DigiLab, and that I think is very relevant for the context in the region on urban issues and disaster. So floor is yours, Evandro. Looking forward.
Yes, no, thanks a lot, Lucy, and thanks Stella and everyone. Indeed, I think the exercise that we made and the explanation by Stella helps me a lot in how to frame, the sort of the context that we're coming from, as we developed a tool called Action, and I mean it's sometimes a little bit confusing, but the name of the company is Klurb, and the name of the tool is Action. Focus on disaster risk reduction, and I'm happy to see that actually one of the topics that came out today, not surprisingly, of course, is disaster risk. So indeed, I don't think I need to expand on the fact that we have an increasing not only number but impact caused by disasters, which is increasing by the day, whereas only as few as 4% of the cities around the planet can count on some sort of disaster warning systems. And this causes not only a massive amount of losses in terms of property, but even more importantly, of course, a huge impact in lives, in livelihoods. And of course, that impacts in particular countries and cities that have the least resources and they're the most vulnerable. So to understand how we as Klurb could actually help cities and trying to minimize the impact of disasters, we run, let's say, a similar exercise as the one that Stella guided us, but maybe in a larger scale. So first thing that we did, we asked cities, and other institutions working in disaster risk reduction, what kind of activities that they do, that they run, and also based on our own experience working in this field for quite a few years, what are the main activities that they had to carry out to try to minimize the impact of disasters. So these are some examples. Now, of course, there's much more than that. But for example, mapping the risk areas, where the disasters generally happen in the cities, where they have the highest impact. They have to calculate, evaluate, and monitor the risk levels. Because we know that the events they cause different levels of impact in the different neighborhoods, the different situations. Whenever a disaster strikes, cities they have to send, but also receive alerts from citizens when they know that something going on. Of course, it has to be a two-way communication. They have to provide response. They have to send rescue teams. They have to provide shelters. They have to provide other kind of support. And of course, if you think about a longer-term perspective, you can think of mitigation and adaptation and other things that, of course, the city has to support their citizens as well. So what we've seen during this exercise is that basically most of the cities, they rely, to run all of these activities, they rely on whatever tool that is made available to them. And that means handwritten maps, of course, Microsoft Office, social media, WhatsApp, telephone, which helps them to get somewhere. And of course, they can do a lot of things with them already. But these tools are not really made for the purpose of disaster risk reduction. So they don't talk to each other. So they provide only limited impact in the end of the day. And very few cities that we spoke to and have the luxury to really be able to use much more sophisticated tools, or even hire consultancy firms, or if they're lucky as well, they can be part of international networks of cities or engage with developmental organizations or NGOs. But once again, this is a luxury that only very few cities have. And even in those cases, sometimes the tool or the framework is too expensive or complex or time-consuming for them to develop this in a longer term. So what we do with Action is that we simplify the technical complexity of option number 2, and we borrow the usability and flexibility of option number 1. Also, really try to combine these two elements that we think that should be together. So the action can actually allow even cities that don't have a lot of resource to act in a collaboration with communities, with residents, in a rapid, effective, and structured, and of course technically sound manner to prepare for, to respond to, and to recover from disasters. So this is done. Sorry. Oops, I think there's one of those things. So this is all the idea of what we call the democratizing risk management. So once again, the cities themselves can take action against disasters in a matter of weeks, and that's very important with limited external support. So really using the knowledge that citizens and city officials and all of the other stakeholders in the city have already available at hand. So they can act really in an independent manner without the need so much from external support. And of course, always having as the main objective reducing the loss of lives and properties via an active and ongoing citizen engagement, and of course with a better emergency response. And by having better and more structured information at the local level, they can better allocate the resources that they have at hand. So basically what we want to achieve in the long term is to basically move from business as usual as we have today. A lot of cities working with whatever tool that they have available with limited effectiveness to really a point where virtually all of the cities that actually need this kind of tools, they are able to access this kind of tools and working with a much higher effectiveness in responding to disaster. This is where we want to get in the future. So our tool works via a web-based platform and a mobile app. Both of these components, they entail quite a few features that help city officials and citizens to really use the tool in a facilitated manner. So there's step-by-step guides and a lot of tooltips, a lot of recommendations now that make the usability of the tool much higher. And whereas the web-based platform is mostly used by the municipality officials, and other entities to manage the operations, the mobile app is mostly focused to be used by the population, the residents, in a two-directional manner. So not only receiving information, but also providing information to the municipality and the response teams that are in the ground. So the structure of the platform, we're not reinventing the wheel here. So basically, we build upon the disaster risk reduction frameworks that are already well established out there. So the first element is mostly based on a diagnosis. So you start from really consolidating and structuring and analyzing data that is already out there in terms of the most vulnerable infrastructure, where the disasters generally hit, what kind of impact that they cause in local communities, some financial elements, and also being able to mapping the different stakeholders and the different documentation and policies that are important. Whereas the second element is very much focused on action, on helping the cities and residents to prepare, to establish alert and response procedures, and then to recover and rehabilitate after the disaster strikes. So in terms of the overall implementation of the tool, our experience has been that for 2 or 3 months, what we do is we adapt the tool based on the local context. The tool is already functional as it is today, but we understand that, of course, for each context, you need some kind of adaptation. And that generally takes around 2 to 3 months, depending on the case. There's some internal testing as well to ensure that the people are familiarized with the main functionalities, and how this is going to be applied, to their situation. And after that, there's a rollout, and we provide, of course, technical support for a few more months as necessary. Some of the experience that we already have applied to, one of them is in Brazil, in Teresina, where the municipality used the tool to develop their very first resilience profile. So it was mostly using this first part of the structure, so the diagnosis, really compiling all the information they had, and using also you're working with the communities to complement and validate information that they had. In Safende, and this is experience that we're very proud of, because it was the community association itself that actually used the tool, was not the municipality. So they used the tool for a much operational perspective. So they after we had the training sessions with them, they publicized the tool via their Facebook page, and they mostly used the platform to disseminate information on essential services during the first wave of the pandemic. So, for example, location and availability of some services in the local health centers and also pharmacies and other kind of support. And they would also receive alerts from their citizens on different kind of supports that they would need, so they could try to understand on how to engage with the city or an NGO or different organizations to support them. And our very first experience was actually back in 2019 in Honduras, the region in San Antonio, where the city basically used the tool from the very beginning to the end. So basically the whole tool with collaborative mapping exercises and also the action plan development to develop and implement their very first disaster risk management plan. Some of the partners and the target institutions that we try to work with include not only organizations that work with cities, not only cities, but also organizations that work with cities. So, for example, once again, NGOs, regional and national level governments, and other development institutions. We offer the tool, what we call in the startup world, as a software as a service. So basically, by a subscription fee, know that you can pay as a yearly basis, but also we're very much open and flexible depending on the context for other kind of engagement as well. We as a company already worked in quite a few countries across the world. I'm based in Berlin. I'm originally from Brazil. My partner, he's in Argentina, but we also have operations in Brazil. And as I said, we already applied to different tools in countries such as Bangladesh, Rwanda, Cabo Verde, Ecuador, and Honduras. This is our team. Myself, Mariano, and some other colleagues have quite a lot of experience working with urban management, not only the topic of disaster risk reduction, but also other areas such as Islamic grading. We also have a strong expertise in design of the platform and user experience and data science. So we're basically the main technical capacities that we need to run the platform. We have already been awarded quite a few prizes, and we're part of different programs in Argentina, Chile, Innovate 2030 that Estela has mentioned as well. Just very recently, we're part of an acceleration program in Brazil, which has been very interesting, very much focused on GovTech. And our tool has also been mentioned in different publications by, for example, the Inter-American Development Bank and also UN Habitat. So as the next steps of the continued development of the platform, the company as a whole, of course, we always striving to continue the technological advancement of the tool. So adding new features, but of course ensuring that it doesn't really complicate things to the final user, and engagement with whatever initiative or city that is willing to try it out and implement the tool. And I mean, we have a very good track record that every single city or institution that wanted to implement the tool, we have found a way to do so. So that's the sort of the leave no one behind perspective that we not only try, but we apply to our approach as well. So thanks a lot once again for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Over back to you, Lucy.
Great, thanks, Evandro. It's so interesting that we have been working together for some time now, and we were traveling to Bangladesh, and now I really understand what Action does and how it works, and also from the examples, it's really very clear the approach and very interesting. Perhaps, there are some questions from the audience on the Action tool, and some interest already as Evandro had this call to see how perhaps this could be something also fitting for other cities and in programs where GIZ is advising and supporting. So if there are concrete questions there. Otherwise, yeah, Evandro, we could chat, and I think Stella also has questions, perhaps towards Evandro. But oh, Nina, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I have one question regarding the data that needs to be already there from the city. Like in our project, we would work with the cities. How mature does it need to be in order to establish and use this tool?
Great question.
Yes, no, indeed. Great question. So we try to apply is really an incremental perspective of the tool, knowing that first, it might be the case that some municipalities, they might not have a lot of information available. And secondly, because we know, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense that in a lot of cases, people are not willing to put like a lot of effort. They don't want to spend 6 months or a year, putting data into the tool before it actually starts providing some results. So we try to work under these two elements based on the feedback that we actually have received. So we structure the tool in such a way that literally with very little information that more often than not, people have in their heads, or maybe they can refer to some reports here and there on PPTs, where, okay, this is where the most critical infrastructure is located. Also, these are the hospitals, these are some community centers, and these are the neighborhoods that are the most vulnerable in the city. And on the other hand, this is where whenever there's a storm or there's like flooding, this is where in the city these events generally have their highest deal of impact. And this is generally the procedure that we follow whenever there's something. This kind of information, generally speaking, is already enough to get started, and for the tool to provide some preliminary results that at least allow like the different stakeholders to have more confidence that actually this is something that can help them. And based on that, of course, people say, okay, well, this is good. I mean, there's something going on. So then they start providing and inserting even more information. Also, once again, generally speaking, and I don't want to romanticize this process because it's never that simple, but with very little information, literally that is already in people's heads, we can already advance something in a matter of like a couple of weeks that can already get the tool at least for the first iteration of implementation.
Thank you.
No worries.
Great, thanks. Further questions? Yeah, Evandro, I would have a question to try to understand a little bit the difference if a community is using the tool and if the local government, like really the administration, and yeah, what were your learnings when you said, okay, you apply that with this the community at the very really neighborhood level, and then if it's the scale of the city, what are the differences? What are the similarities? The recommendations on use on this both levels?
Yeah, that's a very good point. We initially thought that working at the community level would be more difficult because we wouldn't expect them to have, of course, any capacity maybe on disaster risk reduction, at least in a more like formal manner. But in the end of the day, the implementation of the tool was much, much quicker. We literally had a tool on the ground, being applied in 3 weeks in this community, because it was literally a matter of matching the governance structures that they already had. For example, they already had people that would be responsible for each one of the streets in the community. And this person will already be responsible to gather information, for example, on the most vulnerable families in that street, or oh yeah, they need support in terms of like food or this kind of supplies. No, so they already had everything in place. They just needed a tool that could support them to make that even more efficient. Also, it was I mean, honestly, it was very nice to see how easy it was to adapt the tool, you know, to their context, and just okay, maybe instead of speaking and instead of talking about big disasters or hurricanes or flooding, we started to talk about smaller things, smaller no, but like not big events that were the most relevant for that specific community. You know, and once that happened, the implementation was much quicker. Of course, because they were talking about the community that they know very well. They know the problems, and they literally know, I mean, by heart, you know, to walk around their community, and they could locate things much quicker. Sometimes working at the city level, it gets more complex, no? And of course, you have to engage even more stakeholders, so it takes a little bit longer. So I would say that these are the main differences, but generally speaking, once again, I mean, if you talk to someone in a municipality that has been there long enough, they can provide already a lot of information that can allow us to get going much quicker. But of course, due to the administrative procedures as well, there might be some bottlenecks there. But yes, I was quite surprised to see that working with the community was much quicker and easier than we initially thought.
Right. Thanks. I think it depends also exactly on the entry point then for collecting data and action, right? So when things then needs to get done, and it's totally important to think, I think, on the two levels and not opposed at each other, but complementing. And yeah, I think Sumana had a comment in the chat. Yes, it's a very potential platform. Can this be an open source? And I think now we could take this 4 minutes left for the discussion on the ideas that Stella also has, perhaps, for the tool.
Yeah.
Evandro, go ahead.
Yeah, I see Stella already gave her heart on to the comment, which is I mean, it's I think this is probably going to be one of the main questions now that we're already discussing now with Stella in the DigiLab. All I can promise is that, and as I already mentioned, is that every single community, city, or other institutions that wants to use the tool is able to use it. I mean, on a more commercial perspective, what we've seen, and we've been developing and implementing this idea for 5 years now, is that all of the other tools that we could say, well, this is a similar tool, this is an interesting thing that we can take it as inspiration. 5 years ago, they don't exist anymore, literally. No, and this is a concern that we really want to explore, not only on the commercial side, because we know that I mean, we have to have a tool, I mean, a platform that actually doesn't disappear with time. We have to run a business sustainably somehow. But on the other hand, I mean, I don't want to, hear the feedback from the cities and stakeholders that engaged in the development and implementation of that tool that doesn't exist anymore. So it's a lot of times, a lot of resources that it put into that. So I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, it can be open source, it can be closed source. The most important thing for us is that we really find a module, socially speaking, financially speaking, and all that would make sense in the long term, and that really would provide the support that cities need in the long term. So yeah, that would be my long and short answer to that question. But indeed, this is one of the main topics now that we're discussing with the DigiLab.
Thank you, Evandro. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks. Stella, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just a comment here from our perspective at DigiLab. So what we're looking for when we work with innovations is obviously, okay, could that potentially be a public good? Because if it comes to sustainability, you know that we all work project-based and we function in projects, we as GIZ, and we in our, I say, exit strategy. So whenever we leave and we are actually, a program comes to an end, we look into institutionalization. And the easiest way of having something institutionalized that is a digital innovation is if it becomes, or if it is already a public good. And as you all know, as you might know, there are also out there so-called digital principles. And whenever we build a digital solution within a program at GIZ, we should be designing it with or according to the digital principles. And there is one principle that says, okay, open source is the solution that needs to be favored. So yeah, just like to put it in context how DigiLab or how we at here also from a GIZ perspective see this. And I think it's a super important point that we have to discuss with the innovators, because I also understand Evandro's point that there is a need for a sustainable business model from their perspective. So it's a tricky discussion, but we're very happy to have this discussion.
Great. Good, then we arrived at 10:30, and if there are no further questions or comments for Evandro or for Stella, we will share the presentations, we will share the recordings. You have their contact, their email. You have now perhaps further ideas on what is relevant for your project and how to use that. And I think, yeah, it's a lot of potential for, yes, the scouting of the innovations from the DigiLab side. So that if you have some idea on what you want support with the Learning Lab, for example, or with the Scaling Lab. And on the other hand, also with this concrete solution that is out there already and that is very relevant and I think can support many cities also for the countries that are here. And with that, thanks for joining. It was a smaller round, but it's fine. We will also make the reach out for this afterwards and make sure that everybody is watching it and doing the imagination journey virtually after that. Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Evandro, for your inputs, for your insights, for your time. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining. Have a good closing of the year. Stay healthy and sane, and reach out if you need anything. And we are happy to continue this discussion at some point, and I hope that there is further ideas also for action and for digital innovation in your project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lucy, for organizing. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.